All right, don't run away. Do not run away from this video. This is not a conversion video. If you are not part of Christianity, you're not about to go through the what must I do steps of salvation. What I want to do with this video, and it's a little bit different, is that I wanted to basically look at this from the standpoint of what did it really mean back then? Like when you heard saved and you heard saved being talked about, what did that actually mean? Because I think that's an important scenario for us to be considering. That we usually think only about what's the steps to salvation or the plan of salvation. And because of that, we get so centered on this word saved that we forget what it meant originally. And it did have a different meaning. So, what salvation meant in the biblical world? It meant rescue, deliverance, restoration. Here's the modern assumption. Today, many people hear saved and they equal it to going to heaven after death. Going to heaven after death. Have you been saved? Are you going to heaven after you die? Right? That sounds really familiar. I remember years ago, I was a teenager and we were on spring break. I was down in Panama City Beach, Florida in a Burger King, and somebody tapped me on my shoulder and said, "Have you been saved?" Well, I'd gone to church my whole life. I knew the code language. I knew what he was talking about. But today we think it means going to heaven after death. And I'm sure somebody's going to make a comment. That's exactly what it means. And it means that in our culture. Let me give you that. But in the Bible, the idea was much bigger. It meant rescue, deliverance, restoration, being brought out of danger. This is unbelievable. This is different. It's different than what we've been taught and raised with. And so the Hebrew word for save is yasha, meaning to save, to rescue, to deliver, to bring into safety. And the key idea is that God rescues people from danger, bondage, enemies, disaster, and exile. The Lord is my salvation. So this was not simply, "Hey, Lord, save me and take me to heaven." It was save me in the here and now. Rescue me right now. Free me from bondage right now. Release me right now. Pull me out of the mud right now. This is a right now word, not a futuristic word. We've taken it to mean go to heaven when you die. At least Christians have. But it really simply meant to be rescued. So the Greek word for save is sozo, meaning to save, to heal, to rescue, to preserve, to make whole. Soteria, meaning salvation, deliverance, restoration. The key idea is that salvation was not merely escaping hell, it was a rescue into a new life. Salvation equals rescue, restoration, new life. Not simply, "Hey, guess what? Guess what? You you're going to heaven now. You're going to heaven now. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Thank goodness we saved your soul and you get to go to heaven now." That's where we put all the emphasis. But their emphasis was not on that. It was on what impact does this make right now in the day to day? How in the world am I going to get out of this situation that I'm in? I know what you're thinking. I mean, really? Is this really true? Does it mean more than that? See the bigger biblical pattern. God continually rescues people. Salvation was relational, historical, spiritual. Chaos into covenant life. Bondage into freedom. Death into restoration. See it over and over and over again in the Bible. Now, Acts 2, on the day of Pentecost, after Peter's sermon, what shall we do? What do we got to do to be saved? Why? Because they realized they rejected God's Messiah. They stood under coming judgment, and they were on the wrong side of what God was doing. They knew something had to change. They were in need of rescue. Now, most of the people in this crowd already felt like they were saved going to heaven. They felt like they were going to heaven. They weren't in that crowd that day to go, "Oh my goodness, I've missed heaven." No, they felt when they heard that message, we missed the very thing we've always been waiting for. We've been waiting for the Messiah and we missed it. We missed it. What do we got to do to be saved? What do we got to do to rescue us from this situation that we've put ourselves in with this? So next, we look at the being saved from this corrupt generation. Peter's warning, be saved from this corrupt generation. Not be saved so you can go to heaven. This echoes Old Testament warnings. Escape coming catastrophe, return to covenant faithfulness, align to God's Messiah. Isaiah said, woe to those who call evil good and good evil and put darkness for light and light for darkness. It's pretty amazing, right? So he didn't even say, Peter didn't go, hey, you missed heaven. He says, we got a corrupt generation that you've got to be saved from. Acts 16, the Philippian jailer. And I know a lot of fellowships will use this as what have I got to do to be saved? He goes, be baptized, you and your whole household, you'll be saved. And we're looking at this as a plan of salvation. But it's even deeper than that. The earthquake opens prison doors. The jailer believes his life is over. He asks, what must I do to be saved? Acts 16:30. And his first question is deeply practical. It's deeply practical. How do I survive this disaster? What's the disaster? Most likely he was going to have to suffer the fate of those prisoners, right? If somebody there was on death row, guess what happened to the guard? He is the one that would now be killed. So there's a lot on the line. He's basically saying, how do I get out of this situation? How do I get out of this mess? He came trembling and fell down before Paul and Silas, brought them out asking, sirs, what must I do to be saved? Wow. Not how do I get to heaven? He wasn't asking about heaven. He was Roman. He worshiped Caesar. What have I got to do to be saved? How do I get out of this situation? You're going to give your life to Christ. Pretty interesting, a little bit different than our general view. Paul responds, believe in the Lord. Salvation now means rescue from a lost life, rescue from sin and destruction, entering the life of the risen Christ, becoming part of God's people. Not just escaped, but a new life begins. That's ultimately what this salvation means. It's not just how in the world, how can I get to heaven? And that's an important question. But let's not forget that being saved means right now, rescued right now, free from bondage right now while we're on this planet. In fact, in the next video, what we're going to be looking at is saved, so what? So what? If salvation is only about heaven and that's it, so what? This next one won't be a conversion video either, but it will show a lot of the outcomes of being saved. The life outcomes, the differences in life because of being saved. So we'll see that in the next episode. Until then, if you got questions, you're like, Paul, you blew it again. Oh man, salvation doesn't mean that at all. You blew it. Share your comments. Not going to get defensive, not worried about it. Open discussion, open being challenged, open us having a conversation. Or if you got a different question altogether, feel free to enter that below. I might answer it, by responding. Might answer it in another video if it warrants it. But as always, and until next time, be blessed.